You're listening to Investify, preaching financial independence and assisting investors to achieve a more flexible and free lifestyle through smart financial planning and real estate investing. If leaving the corporate world and jumping into this thriving industry is what you desire, tune in and listen to stories of like-minded individuals who made the leap to financial independence. Equip yourself with the right tips and tricks to start your real estate journey, making active or passive ventures that are highly profitable and rewarding. Here are your hosts, Craig Curelop and Zeona McIntyre.
On everybody, you are listening to Investify. My name is Craig Curelop, aka the Fi Guy, and I'm here with my co-host Zeona McIntyre, aka Z Money. Z, how you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. I am here in Maui, Hawaii. I'm sorry my background is not that glamorous. I should find something better, but I am staying at a friend's house and they get a lot of stuff. So that's the reality of being a digital nomad, everybody.
Are you in a chicken coop?
It feels like it because throughout this episode, you're probably hearing lots of roosters in the background. They have, I don't know, somewhere between 60 and 100 chickens around this property. It is a lot.
Wow.
A lot.
Are those chickens providing eggs or are they also providing meat?
I think they're mostly eggs, but there are a lot of like roosters about and they just keep them separate. But yeah, lots of cacao, lots of crowing happening behind me. So I tried to mute it as much as possible, but guys, this is real life.
This is real life. Z is not a fake digital nomad. She's not just an Instagram.
No, a real life one.
She's a real thing. She's the real thing. She's basically famous. She is famous. Speaking of famous, we have Allie the agent on the show today, and Allie is a friend of our good friend Shelby Osborne, who was on episode 12 of Investify, and I think she mentioned that she was the first agent to take 5 pillars nationwide.
Yes.
It's a big deal.
And yeah, it's awesome. And I don't know if you guys know this, but if you were interested in working with Craig or I have an agent in Houston doing that market for us. And then Craig's got another agent out in Seattle. So there's a lot of ways to expand and work together, even if we're not in the same place. So hit us up if you're interested.
Hit us up if you're in any of those places, including Colorado or Seattle or wherever. If you ever need an investor-friendly agent, hit us up. We'll get you one, no matter where it is. And so Allie has an amazing story today, though. And I think it's fun because I think it's inspiring in such a relatable way and she's, I think, there's light years ahead maturity-wise than a lot of people in the space who are just chasing after that number, comparing themselves to somebody else who's got millions and millions of dollars, right? She's like, I don't care about any of that stuff, right? Like, sure, I want to build wealth so I can do the things that I love to do and hang out with my friends, not to just have money. And I think people slave away at just growing that number, even though it's kind of funny. Dave Ramsey says, or to buy things you can't afford. To impress people you don't like, or whatever it is, buy things you can't afford to impress people that you don't like. That's the same thing as you're building your net worth to impress people you don't like. It's still a lot of work. It's still a lot of time. It's still a lot of energy going into that what? Who are you trying to show off for? So figure out what it is that you need and get there. And you don't need to, crush it. And I think she's just a great example of that. So anyway, anything you want to add
Let's
before
bring her on.
Get Allie in? Yeah, thank you. Allie the agent, welcome to the show, my friend. The number 1 or number 2 hype woman out there. You and Shelby are competing for hype woman. But yeah, always love to see you. Always get pumped after seeing you. And I'm excited to hear about your story today. How are you?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here with you two.
Woohoo!
Yay.
So Allie, why don't you kick us off and tell us how you first heard about financial independence?
Yes. So it's kind of a twofold story. Starting off super young, my parents had my sister and I read Rich Kid, Poor Kid. Everyone says Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but they have a kid version that no one knows about. Yeah. So I read
that's amazing.
I was I think 11, something like that, maybe even 8, maybe younger. And then my parents also got us Robert Kiyosaki's board game for kids also, Cash Flow for Kids. So that started a little seed in our brains, me and my sister. And then thought nothing of it, went to college, Elon University, graduated 2012, joined the military to pay for college. And I had been happy renting. My parents were like, why don't you buy? Why don't you buy? And I only purchased a property because I had a dispute with the apartment complex I was in. So I heard about it after I purchased in 2018 when I stumbled across the Mad Scientist podcast, which then brought me down Bigger Pockets and all the other things.
I love that. I always am curious about women who go into military. I mean, like, I love Shelby and I've heard her story, but like, tell me, how do you get your brain into that mode of being like, okay, there's going to be all these like big scary guys. I have to learn about combat and guns. Like, you just into that?
Yeah, and also what's different is I'm from New York, and or at least like downstate New York, near New York City. No one joins the military. All my friends were like, "Oh my God, you're gonna die," and I was like, "Yeah, but at least it's gonna pay for college."
Okay,
So
great.
I did it to pay for college. I did it like to join. Yes, I was scared of being yelled at. I was scared of like all these like little just unknowns and the whole big thing of signing my life away. Who knows how long I'm going to be in. But my parents sacrificed a lot for my sister and I growing up. And by me getting an ROTC scholarship, it was like my way of saying thank you and helping them out for helping me out.
So did you go into the military first and then you went to college, like you with the GI Bill, or did you like? Does it work backwards?
Yeah, the other way. For on the officer side, I went to college. I did my first year, freshman year, like normal, and then in the middle of my sophomore year is when I joined ROTC, and they were kind of like giving away scholarships at that point. So it didn't cover all of tuition and room and board. It covered a lot. To pay for the rest, I also became an RA, which then covered like room and board. So did that answer the question? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Okay. Yeah, it does.
the
Yeah.
majority of it.
Wait, I just got this realization that becoming an RA is like the earliest form of house hacking. You're like, you get you get like a stipend to like manage everybody in the dorms. It's great. Anyway,
Yeah, you know
I was just
what? And it
enjoying that.
also, like in my career within the Air Force is I'm a federal agent. I'm a special agent for the Air Force. So it was almost like both. It was like I don't know, foreshadowing my future, my career path within the Air Force.
That's crazy. Cool, cool, cool. Okay, so rich kid, from rich kid, poor kid to tabling that because you were like 8. And then you went to college, you kind of you wanted to pay for college, so you went ROTC/RA route. You graduated from Elon with zero debt, I imagine. And you said
Yes.
that was 2012. And
Yes.
so are you going back into the military at that point?
So at that point, I had been doing ROTC, so I was never in. I just did my
Okay.
regular college age years with the contract of doing 4 years active duty once I graduate. So then I owe 4 years to the military. And I did that plus another 6. I separate in 1 month after I hit a decade. And I'm a major in the Air Force now. I will be separating as a millionaire. Super excited.
Wow, look at
Yeah.
that.
Woo!
Okay, so
Congrats.
congratulations. That's such big. And so you gave us like the Spark Notes version of your story, but we want to kind of get a little deeper and see. Okay, so like you graduate, you do the military for 4 years. Where did you go? Where when does real estate kind of come into the picture here?
Yeah, real estate came in 4 years after I had been 2016. And again, that's only because I had a fight with my apartment complex. Someone was stalking me, went to court. There was a whole thing, and the apartment complex wanted nothing to do with it. So I wanted more autonomy. My parents had been telling me, been in my ear saying, "Buy a property, buy a property." And I was like, "Okay, fine. You know what? I will. I'm going to buy a property." So I purchased with a VA loan, zero down. I think I paid 5 or 6 thousand in closing costs altogether. I purchased a 2-bed, 2-bath condo in Colorado Springs, and this was like my third assignment at that point. So I purchased it, obviously with all intent to move in because it's an owner-occupied loan, and I will never suggest any sort of mortgage fraud. I then get short order deployment orders to Afghanistan, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to go jail. I'm supposed to move into this property." But that's like what the VA is for. That VA loan is because they know that people are military. That's why they actually allow 2 loans out at the same time. which a lot of people don't know about. You can take out 2 VA loans at the same time. So without ever having moved in, with all intent to move in, I had to go to Afghanistan. And so I rented out the property. So I super quickly became a landlord. I hired my first property manager that I found on Google, which happened to be okay, good enough, you know. And I hadn't run any numbers prior to that because this was just going to be owner occupied. Luckily, it ended up cash flowing not a lot. I mean, like $98 a month. But where it helped me tremendously was in the appreciation because it's doubled in value. I purchased it at 158. Now it's like 330 something.
All right, Allie, this is
The for real deal.
all right. This is your first deal, whether it is intentional or not. Let's get into it. So it was a 2-bed, 2-bath condo in Colorado Springs. You were not going to buy it as an investment property, you were not going to buy it as an investment property. You were going to just, right? You're going to just live there. What made you, before we get into it too much, I want to ask, what made you decide to rent it versus just sell it? Because I think a lot of people would have just said, oh, like I'm not going to live there. Let's just turn around and sell it and I'll get my money back.
Probably the timing. Selling has never, and I'm rewinding back to like my brain and my 2016 brain, right? It's still now like never sell. My 2016 brain was I just spent $6,000 on closing costs, which to me at that point was a lot. It's like I'm not going to just sell it right away. I'm at least going to rent it out, see how I did general numbers, right? Like I didn't have the BP calculator with me then, but I did the general numbers of like mortgage, property manager, taxes, insurance, and I was like, oh, that's it, which is not obviously, as you know. And it worked out then. So I was like, you know what, let me just rent it out, see how it goes. I can always sell later. And I liked how it went.
I love that. Okay, so you bought it for $158,000. You put $0 down, or the $6,000 in closing costs. What were you getting in rents? What was your mortgage payment? All that good stuff.
Yeah, purchase it 30-year fixed, and don't have the numbers like right now because I actually went through a couple of tenants, and so the rents were higher and then lower and then higher, and I almost had to evict somebody. Then I don't know. So I struggled a little bit there, but overall I was cash flowing, an actual cash flow, like after everything, PITI, all expenses, everything. The cash flow was $98 a month. But every 2 years, there would be a major snowstorm, which the HOA would not cover. It would blow out all my windows every single year, or every 2 years. And that would wipe out all the cash flow. So on paper, it's negative. In real life, it's zero, like right on the line.
Wow. So yeah, it's okay. So the HOA, I give a lot of questions here. So the first question, I guess, is you mentioned that you're having some problems with tenants. And as someone that is on the other side of the world, right, how do you handle this, right? I know you had a property manager, but oftentimes they kind of like just keeping asking you questions, right? And so what did you do?
Yeah, the one specifically, the biggest issue that I had was somebody that had brought in pets when I had like a no pet policy. They claimed emotional support animal, and my property manager was, very conservative and didn't want to be on the wrong side of whatever that's called, just being on the wrong side of like emotional support animals. That it would be too big of a hassle to handle in court. So we just broke the contract. We just let her out. And luckily she didn't, damage anything. The only reason it came to my knowledge is because she let those animals just take a shit everywhere. And people were complaining. They complained to the HOA, which and then fined me, the owner, not them, the tenant. And I thought, okay, super easy fix. I'm not paying for it. Obviously, it's the tenant's issue, so I'll just have the tenant pay it. But that's not how it works in reality. So we just let the contract break. And there were a couple of, months in vacancy. But it ended up working out to where we just ended up becoming a little bit more strict. I spoke a lot to the property manager, which again, this is all via email. I don't even have a way to call like over my cell phone to the property management when I'm in Afghanistan. So it was staying on top of the property manager and making sure that he knows that I am on top of it. So that way it doesn't just happen. I'm not just paying $100 a day per animal, because somebody's breaking the contract.
For sure. No, I love that. And I think you said something that's really, really important there. And it's that just because a contract says something does not mean that's the way it works. right? And I've dealt with this many times too. It's like you're not going to take somebody to court for $300, for $500, for $1,000, right? Like that threshold to take somebody to court is actually extremely high. And so that's what makes just like you need to make sure tenant screening is just on point, because a bad tenant will cost you lots of money. Going through an eviction is just not fun. And yeah, that's just a big thing. And so I think people are like, oh, well, it says in the lease this. It's like, okay, yeah, like tell that to the tenant. Let's see if they just send you the money. Probably not.
Right.
So
And then even if you do go to court, the chances, and when you go to small claims court, the chances of you actually getting paid are actually very low. So even if you win the judgment, you win the case, you still might not see that money. So it was a waste of effort.
I had a contractor in Florida kind of screw me over, and he owed me like $30,000. So it was enough worth it to take it to court. And so I took him to court and he lost. And actually the judgment that he owes is now $90,000. So it was a 3x judgment. And so I'm like, sick, getting $90,000. Haven't seen a dollar of that yet, because it's just, he doesn't have it, right? And he actually has someone else ahead of him he has to pay. And so unless this guy can make like $150,000, I'm not seeing a dollar of this. And so that's like how judgments work oftentimes. And so it's not so easy like that. You make sure you don't make the mistakes on the front end.
Well, I haven't had to deal with judgments, but I did have somebody kind of. That sounds really weird, Craig. Anyway, so I had somebody kind of wreck a place of mine that's in Colorado Springs, and it was about $15,000 of damage and furniture and time out of rent and blah, blah, blah. And we went through the same thing. Do we take them to small claims? Do we not? But it was the same idea that, like, I know this guy doesn't have the money, so, you know, what's the point? So, yeah, we just took a loss on our taxes and called it a day. Unfortunately, that does happen occasionally.
Yep. 100%.
And that's what reserves are for.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome, Allie. So you've got this first property. It's cash flowing you $100 a month. It ends up breaking even. But really the thing that's great about this is the appreciation that you mentioned, right? You said it's worth like $350,000 now, so over doubled?
330, yeah.
330. Yeah, I think that's over doubled or about double. So I mean that's great, and you bought that 6 years ago. So double your money in 6 years. I think everybody would do that.
I'm assuming now you're renting it for more and you're actually cash flowing. Yes?
Yes. Definitely still have those blizzards every 2 years that wipe out the windows. That has been very consistent. But every year the rent does go up.
So what are you getting for it now?
Right now I have it rented for so rough. I think it's like 16 in the 1600s. Yeah. And then it increases. That one is up in May 2023, and then it'll increase after that. I've had now, after I struggled with some tenants, I've had the same couple in there for the last 4 years who have taken care of the property really well. So it's below market, but for a reason, because I want to keep them around. They're good.
Right. And so how much are you cash flowing these days?
Now it's like 200. It's still not much.
Okay.
Every year the HOA increases and it kind of evens it out.
Okay.
Yeah, but that one is more of an appreciation play. The other ones that I have now are more in the cash flow play.
Okay, let's get into these other ones. Tell us what happens after this condo in 2016.
Yeah, so after that, I moved around some more, spent some time in California, didn't buy there, and moved here to Tucson. And I purchased another single family, or that one was my first single family. And I purchased that one for $163,000, and I moved into it. That was my other VA loan, because you can have two out at a time. Moved into it, and then I got married, and then I moved out. So that one turned into a rental. And short term and medium term. I actually just turned that one from a short term to a medium, because in that specific area of Tucson, I found that Airbnb, the market just wasn't demanding that. So it was doing really well the first, 3 years that I've had it. And then just a couple months ago, I turned it to an 8-month rental.
Okay. So let's get into that one a little bit more. So, and I want to hear about that dynamic of the change too. So what year is this now? You're buying the second one? Is that 2019?
Yes, 19.
Okay. So 2019, you're buying this one. It's at 168, you said?
Yeah, 163.
Yeah.
163. And how much did you put down? What's the mortgage payment? What was the house like? All that good stuff.
Yeah, 2-story, which is actually not that common in Tucson. It's a 2-story, 2-bedroom, 3-bath home. and also in an HOA, which since then I've learned my lesson. I'm not going to purchase in HOAs anymore, but it is what it is. I purchased that one on a 15-year loan. So my mortgage is higher, but I also only now have 10 years left. I've been putting a little bit extra into it. It was cash flowing. The cash flow varies, right? Between whether it's a short-term rental, whether it's short-term rental season, back to medium term. So Tucson, Arizona has something what we call the gem show, and people come from all over the world to literally look at rocks and minerals. Like, it's such a big deal, and I'd never heard of it because I'm not really into rocks, but people come from all over the world for this. And it's during the winter seasons. That's when like the demand is the highest for all properties in Tucson, because no one wants to come here in July, August. It's way too hot. It's like 110. No one wants to do that.
Yeah, Zeona was first in line at the Rock and Mineral Show, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Whatever, dude. No, but he's just calling me a hippie. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, I know she likes her rocks and crystals. Yeah.
I do. I mean, at home, they're literally everywhere, so I can't really say anything, but go on.
Okay. So sorry if I offended you then.
No, it's okay. You can offend Zeona. Just don't offend me. I'll cry.
Okay, I won't offend you.
Yeah.
Sensitive Craig. So yeah, it had done, kind of a roller coaster in any property in Tucson because it's so seasonal. No one wants to come in the summer. Everyone only comes in the winter, snowbirds, all of that. That one, the reason I changed that one from a short-term rental to a medium term is actually pretty interesting because my wife has another property that wouldn't do nearly as good medium term, so she keeps it as a short term. But it's just the difference in location, even all within just the small pocket of Tucson. That it's just how real estate is so hyper local. Where my cookie cutter 2-bed 3-bath home in an HOA community, no one really wants to go to anymore. Unlike her property, which is a 3-bed 2-bath home, completely remodeled, backyard, pool, like super safe area. That one is always in demand. It's interesting having like different case studies within Tucson.
Yeah, so you didn't want to have like a short term. So you didn't want to both do short term rentals. That wasn't on the table.
They both were short term rentals, and
okay.
The first couple of years, my property did pretty well, but then it since then has died down. So I switched it.
I see. So what was I'm curious as to what the difference was between what were you getting monthly from a short term rental, and what were you getting from the long term rental, or a medium term? Sorry.
Yeah. So for my cookie cutter house, I was getting in the peak in the summer, I was getting 150 a night, and in the winter it was like 55 a night. Meanwhile, my wife's property in the peak gem show, when it's cold, she can rent it out for 360 a night, and in the summer it's 160 a night.
That's the pool effect. Pools are really popular. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And what do you think you'll get for a medium term rental?
Medium term rental, I am renting my property out now for $2,500 a month, and the medium term for my wife Britt's property, it would be honestly like around the same amount. And that I think is because even though her property is so much nicer, so much more luxurious than mine, it's so far from the Air Force Base, and mine is a lot closer to the Air Force Base.
So tell us, do you remember what the mortgage is on this place, and then what you were kind of getting per month, maybe average as a short-term rental, just so we have a difference there? Because it's hard to know without knowing the occupancy.
Yeah. The occupancy for my property on average was about 75%, but that's because I would have to do like last minute deals and significantly reduce one of the days of the week, so in that way that's what viewers see, like, oh my gosh, $34 a day, but then the other days are not as cheap. Cash flow for my cookie cutter home is in general was about $300 a month.
Okay.
As a short-term rental. That's with the peaks and with the valleys.
And as a medium-term rental, what does that cash flow look like?
Now it's $400.
Oh, so you actually cash flow more.
Yeah.
Because it's higher
and
rent?
It's less work.
Or less expenses.
Yes. So there were some utilities, not utilities, but some services that I just kept in my name, such as internet. I'm not going to break my internet just to have to purchase internet again if I choose to turn it back to a short-term rental when they're only going to stay there for 8 months. So little things like that I've just eaten the cost of. I mean, I've incorporated it into their rent, But yeah, I ran the numbers. I was like, wow, I've never seen this. I mean, I only have 7 doors, 6 properties, but I thought it was really interesting that in that specific area of Tucson, which might be similar to other areas of the country, that you might want to, if you own a short-term rental, might want to look at medium-term rentals because they might pay more medium-term as opposed to short-term.
So is it because the rent is higher, or is it because the expenses are lower, or is it a combination of the two?
I think it's demand in that area. No one really wants to vacation in a cookie cutter home. People want a vacation with a luxurious, nice backyard that my wife like completely redecorated, rehabbed. And the medium term is higher because it's so close to the base. I get a lot of people that come in for graduations or whatever is happening at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, and it's closer to the airport. Unlike my wife's property, which is like over an hour away from the airport, still being Tucson. Tucson is huge, by the way. You might not think this if you've never been. You might think, oh, Tucson's super small to compare to Phoenix. It takes more than 1 hour to get from one side to the other. So there are so many different pockets and different types of just neighborhoods in Tucson.
Cool. Okay, so we've got, Z, anything you want to add?
No, I was just wanting to hear what we had next. So, I mean, I guess what I'd say is it doesn't seem like you've had a ton of huge wins in cash flow. So has that made you feel like I'm an investor and I want to collect a lot of properties, or are you kind of I don't know, feeling discouraged, or just where are you at that point?
Yeah, when I first rediscovered FI, and then I dug into Mr. Money Mustache and Bigger Pockets and everything, everyone had these requirements, right? Like the 1% rule and $200 cash flow per door per month. And I was like, man, my properties, at the time I only had 2, but I was like, my properties don't meet that. But I ended up realizing how much appreciation can help you. And if you hold your properties long enough, your properties are going to go up and to the right. I mean, they always do, just like the stock market, just like, everything. So my assets are pretty 60-40 real estate to index funds. I got started before real estate. I was investing a lot more into index funds because I had no idea what else to do with my money. So having the buy and hold mentality has helped me a lot. And really going to, I think Coach Carson says this a lot, where you don't need a lot. I'm not trying to build this huge 100 door portfolio. 20 is more than enough. I mean, what I have now, once I pay them all off, that's more than enough. So it's there's no need to go as fast as you can. I've seen a lot of people go as fast as they can, and then they get hurt. So going nice and steady. What my plan is, and my wife is, we plan on just wherever she ends up being stationed later on. You're gonna purchase, move in, and then rent it when we move out. Slow and steady wins the race. I don't know. But there is no race,
So it sounds like you're kind of methodically you're not even house hacking, right? You're just buying a house in each place that you move to, and then eventually renting it out, right? And you're just slowly building your portfolio that way. And I love that you said it's so easy to compare yourself to other people that are crushing it, right? And you're in GoBundance for women, right?
I am.
Yeah, and so I don't know if you go to those events and you kind of have that same kind of feeling of oh my God, I need to compare, oh, she's crushing it, or oh, he's crushing it, and all this stuff, and you're I'm doing so little, I need to go out there and but then you kind of come home and you reflect and you're wow, I'm gonna work my butt off all year so I can go once a year to show off my one sheet and my net worth to some people that I only see once a year that I don't care about. Right. And so once you kind of get over that and you're just what is your why, which we'll get to, and why do you want to achieve financial independence, and what is this all about? That I think drives you much further than just increasing that number.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree entirely. You can spend your entire life comparing yourself to others, and then you're not truly happy, just be grateful. And that's when gratitude comes into play. I'm so grateful for what my parents have done for me and my sister, for the life that I have. I mean, every day I wake up fucking healthy. That's a good day. That's a good day.
I wanted to just add something to this. It's I had recently been on this treadmill thing of being do I have enough, and money insecurity about just feeling fi and having everything set up. And Mr. Money Mustache, I don't know if you look at his blog, but he recently came out with, I think it's called like Why You'll Never Run Out of Money. And there was a really cool spreadsheet in there that I was able to fill out, and it showed me like, oh, what, my assets are going to look like way down the road. And what you realize in real estate is like, even if you're trying to hit a certain cash flow now, if you try to race to that, you're going to end up with way more than you need on the other side. Because as of today, where I stand buying nothing else, it was saying like, oh, I would die with like $10 million. Like I couldn't even spend all the money I would make, right? But if you look at yourself today, before all those homes are paid off, it's easy to be like, scarcity, I don't have enough. So I like the idea of people going into this like coast-fi, knowing that in 10 years, so much of it will be paid off and you'll have so much more in appreciation. And then in 20 years, rather than feeling like you need it all today.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. If it were up to me, I would be living Craig Curelop style. I would be sleeping on the freaking chair. Like I would rent out every square foot that I could. I have my wife to balance me out though. She's like, no, we're adults. Let's sleep on bed. So
that's good.
I definitely have that mentality of like, go, go, go. But it's a good balance that I have with my wife. It's like, we can live for today too.
So now you've used up your 2 VA loans. What do you do beyond that? What have you done?
Yeah. So I've used up my 2 VA. My wife has used up her 2 VA loans. So that's 4. And then the other 2 we have just saved up. One of them was completely save up. The other 2 were, one was out of state in Oklahoma City. That was a turnkey property. And then the other one is a duplex here in Tucson, Arizona. That one I used money from the index funds that I had been investing prior to real estate. So I just sold those and went more into real estate.
So before we go into your out-of-state properties, because I am really curious how you jumped from, buying right where you live, where you were going to live into, and then making that leap. Let's jump into a little ad. So as you guys know, we've been doing these ads live. I think they're more enjoyable to listen to. And I'm going to talk about my Airbnb investing group. So I have a Facebook group if you guys are interested in learning how to invest in Airbnbs or medium-term rentals. I do specific content on those every week. So I'm doing lives that you can't get anywhere else. And you can find it by searching Airbnb investing or finding me on Instagram. I post about it every week. So come check it out and talk to other investors and learn how to be an Airbnb investor. Now back to Craig, because I know he has a question waiting.
Nope, I don't.
Craig, you're a liar.
Oh, Z, I just wanted to make you feel a little bit awkward.
Okay.
Okay. Did it work?
It did.
Okay,
Those ads are
my job.
awkward, everybody, but this is how we keep the lights on. So just bear with us.
We got to keep the lights on. We got to keep us showing up. And anyway, and we got to keep getting great guests like Allie on the show so we can keep asking her more and more questions. So, okay, Allie. So, I think you mentioned that you had 6 total doors, 7 units. Is that right?
7 doors, 6 units. One of them is a duplex.
7 doors, 6 units. Okay. 7 doors, 6 units. And so, wait, how does that work? How do you
6
have
properties.
like
all single
6
family,
properties?
Duplex. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
You guys were talking about the same thing, but you were confusing each other. That's what was happening.
Got it. Z knew what was going on. She's like the Geppetto.
I'm tracking it.
Yeah, she's got us. What does that portfolio spit off for you today? In terms of cash flow, in terms of appreciation? You mentioned that you became a millionaire, through 7 properties, right? Or 6 properties, 7 units, which again is more than the average person without a doubt. But it's not like you can systematically get there is what I think is amazing. So tell us that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm not a millionaire yet. I'm about like 12K away. So in about 3 weeks, I will be. So I'm looking back previously when I joined the military, I thought I was going to do 4 years. And then a year or 2 into it, I was like, you know what? I might as well just finish the entire career. Once I retire 20 years later down the road, I can get my pension every single month until the day I die. Now that I'm halfway and I'm separating, I'm not doing that. Prior to that, I had been purchasing with the intent of more so cash flow. More so appreciation. I didn't really need the cash flow. But now I'm at a point where I separate in a month and I had invested more so for appreciation instead of cash flow. So now what do I do, right? Because altogether we get less than $1,000, like around $1,000 on low season, 1,500, 1,700 on high season. So winter months. But that is not enough for my wife and I to live off of. So she is going to be staying in until she retires from the Air Force. Then she'll get that pension every month. And I'm going to be a full-time realtor. So I have some options, because I have properties. I can sell one, or I can 1031 one of them, or, a couple of them into something that cash flows more. And I have been looking here and there, but I haven't really, gone too far with that. But those are options that I have because of what I have done in the last 10 years. And that's something that I might do later on. I might pull a HELOC off of one of them and purchase more cash flowing properties to at least meet me halfway as to what I was making as a major in the Air Force.
Yeah, and I love that. And I love that strategy because it's truly, I say this, I feel like, on almost every episode, but cash flow makes you financially independent, appreciation makes you rich. And so if you didn't cash flow a single thing and you bought in areas like California or whatever, all the high appreciating places, right, you're going to be extremely wealthy. But cash flow is really what gives you that freedom. And so what you kind of did, it sounds like, is you did buy in appreciating areas, but you're now able to leverage that appreciation by taking HELOCs or by selling and then redeploying in higher cash flowing assets so that you can have that independence. And then when you separate, you feel a little bit more comfortable. And so I kind of love that. And it just shows you that, like, there's so many ways to build wealth in real estate. Just buy it and figure out how to make it work for you later, because life changes, right? But real estate is definitely it kind of molds to your life, and you kind of use real estate in any way that adheres to your life. And I think you illustrated that perfectly.
Okay, I want to hear how, even if it's brief, how you went from buying locally to buying out of state. Because for a lot of people, they live in a market that's maybe too expensive, or it's not really going to cash flow, so it doesn't meet their needs, but they're held back by this idea that a lot of people say, oh, you should buy your first couple places within driving distance, like within 4 hours. I remember hearing that when I got started, and I don't know, I think it's ridiculous. But tell us how you feel.
Yeah. So I originally, my first purchase was driving distance. I was stationed there. It was owner-occupied loan, but then quickly became an out-of-state investment, out-of-country investment. And so I kind of just got used to that early on. I got used to being managing the manager via email, via statements that I'm reading. So I was okay at that point, fast forward 5 years later when I purchased my first completely out of state, sight unseen property. And that was through a lot of research to find a good turnkey company. I purchased that through Chris Clothier's company, REI Nation. And I had spoken to a lot of people that had done business with them, and I didn't hear any bad reviews. I was like, you know what, let me go for it. And since then, it's been really well. It's been doing pretty well.
So how did that whole process work? Do you come in with the down payment, 20% down, and they take care of the rest? Or what do you have to analyze the deals? How do you know which one to act on?
Yeah, how the process worked for me, I don't know if and I've only done it once. I don't know if other people have the same exact process, but they purchase properties and they're rehabbing it. And then that is when I got in the mix of it. So they send you properties depending on what state you want to purchase, depending on what, whatever your requirements are. This one did not meet the 1% rule. It was 0.85, something like that, in Midwest City. So just outside of Oklahoma City. And when I got involved, when I chose that property, they had already been done. They finished the rehab. So I got to look at the scope of work. I had my own, appraisal come out, inspection come out, just the normal due diligence. And we used their property management company. And so far it's been good. It doesn't cash flow a ton. And it's because it's Oklahoma. It doesn't really appreciate a ton compared to Colorado, compared to Arizona. But it's a good middle of the road property, and I really like the way they do their property management.
So I like that you said, you got the normal due diligence stuff. You went and got the inspection and whatever, because a lot of people say, oh, well, I have to walk through it. But truth be told, most of us are completely untrained. Like me, I've bought and sold probably 20 places of my own, and I don't know what's like an indication of, bad settling or whatever. There's a couple things I've learned to like sniff out at this point, but it's not going to beat the inspector. And so I don't have to be there, and buying sight unseen is totally fine. So I think that, it's just good to realize, like, if it's not a property you're going to live in yourself, you probably don't need to see it ahead of time.
Yeah. And you're exactly right. Why? I mean, unless you are a contractor, unless you are an inspector, you don't know what the fuck you're looking at. So why even pay for a flight out there? I mean, maybe to meet the property manager in person, to meet, the rehabbers in person, but you can't, I wouldn't be able to call anything out. So yeah, I agree. And I actually did have intent to go out there before closing, but that's when COVID happened. It was like right before, May, June 2020. And the military restricted all movement. So I was like, well, I'm going to have to purchase this completely sight unseen. And to this day, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the inside. I have driven by it outside on a very long cross country. I was like, wait, we're driving through Oklahoma. Might as well see this property. And like, what do you know? The property's there because the bank was able to lend on it. The appraisal came in, so there's no real need to see the inside.
Totally. Well, Craig, do you have another question? Otherwise, I have something.
Nope. I have.
Okay.
Nope. Yeah, go ahead.
Great. So, Allie, I wanted to hear now, what made you transition into being an agent, and how does that look as an investor being an agent? I think we have a lot of ins as agents, but how are you seeing it?
Yeah. So first, why I became an agent. It took me a while to become an agent. My wife had been telling me, like, you love real estate, might as well be an agent. It's like, I don't want to just show kitchens. I was kind of against it in the beginning. And then the more I realized that being an agent is owning your own business, I just was not putting the two together. I was like, you know what? Maybe I should. And because I didn't know what I want to do after I left the military, I just knew that I wanted to leave the military. I was a little bit unhappy. So this last year, I've been a realtor for 13 months. So I finished my first year, and when I realized that I made more as a realtor than I did as a then captain, now major in the Air Force, and I liked it, and I wouldn't have to deploy for, year-long trips to Africa, I was like, you know what? I'll have more autonomy over my life, over, the schedule of my day, where I live, and anything and everything. So I was like, I'm going to go through with this. And originally I was going to work like specifically with investors, but Tucson actually does not, it's very, very hard to find a property that cash flows long-term. So whenever I do have investors come to me looking to invest in a long-term rental, I tell them straight out of the gate, like, it's 99.9% chance you will not find a property that meets that unless you do your own driving for dollars, your own off-market thing. So I actually haven't worked with a lot of investors. My niche is like military members, because I'm in the military, my wife is in the military. Yeah, so I have access to the MLS, obviously, but the numbers don't always work. So even myself, I'm actually starting to look elsewhere.
Well, maybe medium-term rentals will be your new niche for investors, because it looks like you can cash flow with that. So yeah, if you guys are looking for medium-term rental in Tucson so that you can retire there in 20 years, hit up Allie.
Yeah, and short-term rentals, it definitely works there too. What's nice about Arizona and Tucson is kind of like the Wild Wild West. The only restrictions are the HOA communities, which there are a lot of, but some HOAs do allow short-term rentals and medium terms.
One last question to Allie, the agent. What parting wisdom do you have for everybody, Allie?
Go slow, go steady. There's no need to compare yourself to others, and remember that everything in life is negotiable.
That's a lot all in one. Slow is fast. Wait, slow is, what is that? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right? You know that saying? I feel like it's a military saying. I heard that from a military guy.
Yeah.
That's like always stuck with me. All right, let's head into
the final four.
All right, Allie, question number 1. What are you reading right now?
Dude, I read like 7 books at a time. I'm reading...
Just give us the highlight.
Thinking for Women, The 4-Hour Body.
Cool.
I'm rereading Traction.
Cool. All right.
All right, question number 2. What is the best advice you ever received?
Probably that everything in life is negotiable.
Ugh, I love that too. I actually remember, I'm going to tell a quickie story. I have a friend who her husband was in the military, and she's the only person that I've ever met that will negotiate in like a regular store. She'll just go in there and be like, do you have a military discount? And why not? And like, she gets discounts everywhere, and it's ridiculous. So I love that. Everything is negotiable, even when you think it's not.
Yeah.
Okay. Question number 3. What is your why?
Time freedom, to be able to live on the beach and fucking sip a pina colada for the rest of my life every day. And give back
I
to my
love
parents.
pina
That means
coladas.
so much to me.
That's great.
All right, last question. What is one thing that you think differently than most everybody else thinks?
To repeat it, I guess, a third time, really that everything in life is negotiable. Even though it might be black and white on a contract, like there
Getting you
are
another question, Allie.
there are human factors. Human factors.
Yeah. No, that is good. I do love that everything is negotiable. And so, I mean, why don't you give us a story of when you like thought of that and when you negotiated something that maybe other people wouldn't have?
Yeah, something as small, not real estate related, but related to what Zeona was talking about, was like when you're checking something out, like at a retail store, if it has a little bit of a rip in it, ask for a discount. They will give you one. Same thing with like ripe or overripe vegetables in a supermarket. Sometimes they will. And then going to a little bit more real estate related, like even though something is black and white in a contract, that's like cash for keys is, an example of how everything is in life is negotiable. Even though it's not written in the contract, there are human factors that come into play. Like tug at those emotions, and this is my federal agent coming out, but tug at those emotions and you will come to a nice compromise.
Yeah, love that. Cash for keys is my favorite way to evict somebody because it's a lot easier than going through the eviction. All right, Allie, where can people find out more about you?
I am Allie the agent on all social media. I respond to all comments and all messages. So I'm on Instagram, TikTok, just started a YouTube, and you can hit me up there.
Yeah, definitely
Awesome.
hit up Allie the agent, especially if you're in the Tucson, Arizona area looking for any type of property, whether it's an investment, maybe it's a 20-year retirement home or whatever it is. Allie's your gal.
Yeah, and it's Allie spelled A-L-I.
Thanks so much, Allie, and we'll see you next time.
See ya. Thanks for having me.
And that was Allie the agent. Z, what'd you think of Allie?
I thought this was a great FI story. I think that the difference between FI people and real estate people is the real estate people get really into these like braggadocious numbers. How many doors? How much cash flow? But she was really kind of in this pace of like, will I have enough later? And how much do I need now just to kind of like get by? So it's that slow and steady thing that she was talking about. And I just think that's a really healthy way to look at it. You don't want to burn yourself out going like 10xing again and again and again. It's just not possible.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just a lot of work and it's a lot of time and it's a lot of energy and it's not, and it may not necessarily be what you truly want to do. And so again, I just always say like, anytime you find yourself in a rut or anytime you find yourself like always take a step back, right? And see that forest through the trees and say, are you taking the steps to get to the goal that you want? Not that your friend wants, not that your parents want, not that that guy that you see once a month that you want to impress wants, right? What do you want? Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
Yep, exactly. So I thought this was a good story for that. And yeah, she's just inspiring in the sense that she just has such a great attitude about it. She's not flaunting tons of cash flow, but she's keeping on. So seems like she's going to have a really nice portfolio.
Yeah, it will definitely grow with time. And you know what else I think should probably grow with time?
Ew, I don't know.
Ew. I was going to say our ratings and reviews would grow with time if we just maybe nicely ask you guys to please let us rating and reviews. I don't know where Zeona's head is. In fact, if you think you know where Zeona's head is.
Everything you've said to me today sounds creepy, Craig. I'm just feeling creeped out.
Wow. Maybe because you're in a chicken coop with your back to the door. Who knows who's coming up behind you? Anyway. Not creepy, but yeah, if you guys would please leave us a rating and review and show us some love on iTunes. It really helps the show, really helps us grow. We just hit our 100,000th download, so that's super exciting. And we'd like to
That's it for this episode of Investify. We hope that these nuggets of real estate wisdom lead to more savvy financial planning and a clearer path towards financial freedom. For more content like this, subscribe to the show at investify.com. Don't forget to leave a rating and share it with your friends. Together, we can transform more real estate newbies into successful and clever investors. Thank you so much for listening. See you on the next one.